you know, if I get elected, there is going to be a ton of stuff to do. Because I'm a man of action. I think the public wants answers and they want action. We don't need negative, we don't need acrimony, we need action. Two people sit down, a young couple, and Rich says to Heidi, well, I got the budget. Okay, what is it? Well, we're going to spend $38,000. Well, Rich, we only make $29,000. How's that work? Well, we have our credit cards.
Yeah.
Rich, we have $156,000 in credit card debt. What are we going to do? Well, our Chinese neighbor across the street said he'd help us. Oh no, we're not going to do that. There's just trouble in that equation. No, what are you going to do? I mean, what about the kids? That's it, we'll leave the debt to the kids. Add 8 zeros to the numbers I just used, and that is the budget that the president proposed. And that's what they're looking at. Realistically, are you nuts? I mean, that's what we should say. You wouldn't do it at home. Rich and Heidi wouldn't do that at home. Heidi would say, all right, Rich, lay it all out on the table. We're going to look at all of our budget. What do we spend? Where does it come from? Where does it go? And we're going to what does the federal government do? They have so many entitlement programs. First of all, the word years ago was what? Welfare or something Then else. They changed the word to entitlement, which has a connotation of you were entitled to it. That is yours. You get to have that. That's a right. Well, let's call it a privilege. And now when we're evaluating our budget, we sit there and say, okay, what comes first? Well, we got to repay the debt. We got to pay down on the debt. That's an obligation. So there are certain givens. Well, right now, the givens, if you will, the things in the budget that have to be paid are upwards of 70% of the budget. That's before you get to the 19% that goes to defense. Now you're at 89%, and now you're talking about all these other things. So we need to look at everything in the budget, whether they're obligations or not, and say, well, now wait a minute. Medicare is an obligation, or Social Security is an obligation. We have to pay those. But what is the bottom line? We're getting to a point, spending at a rate where you're spending nearly $1 trillion more per year than you're taking in, that according to the Office of Management and Budget, in 12 years, it doesn't go any further. They don't use the word bankrupt. They say, what was the word? It comes apart or something. You know. Basically what they're saying is you're paying more to service the debt, your mortgage, if you will, than anything else. So there's nothing left for anything else. Discretionary spending is the term. There's no more discretionary spending. You can't even spend for defense.
But do we really need 74 teachers' aid
that's
departments at the federal level?
It was in the
There's 163-ish security agencies within the federal government. I worked with a lot of those. And it's conflicting rules and regulations, and the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. Do we need all of that?
Well, these are the questions, in fact, that the public is asking. And now we just saw something happen last week, didn't we, a week ago, with Scott Walker in Wisconsin. And what's happening now is the public is clued in. We're figuring it out. Maybe a little late, you know, but after 3.5 years, we have pilots are decisive. We're leaders. You get the job done. Can you imagine 2 pilots sitting there? You did not. You did too. No, I won't. It's your fault. I did not. Dysfunction?
Half a time.
So that's the first problem with government, is we have a bunch of teenagers in the cockpit. We're headed for trouble. We've been spending
here sooner than we think.
That's right.
Yeah,
I think it's.
I agree.
I think, well, from the metaphor of the pilot, you know that we avoid thunderstorms and bad weather with a vengeance. We have radar up there, and we watch for that. And the autopilot's on. We're cruising along. We're monitoring the fuel consumption and all that. And I mean, we're monitoring everything. And when we see trouble, we avoid it. If we get into turbulence, we can climb or descend or whatever. We avoid the rough spots so that we can come in safely for a landing. Well, the guys who have been in control for the last couple of years have put us on a course where we're headed straight for thunderstorms. And if we don't change course, I submit that we're already in a little bit of turbulence right now.
I would say we're headed for a hurricane, not
and what's going to happen when we hit that turbulence is it's going to throw us all about. And you're not going to be worried about your teacups. You're going to be worried about your survival.